What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to start a new segment that I want to do every so often. It's called Blast from the Past. So one thing that you see a lot of people do is reviews on newer statues and newer pieces. I want to take the time to do some stuff that I previously did, previous works that I've done, paints, build-ups, or whatever. And today I'm going to start out by showing you probably one of the most sought after custom pieces out there today. There's not too many of these out there anymore, and that's Wesley Snipes BLADE Daywalker version. So this piece was done probably 4, maybe 5 years ago. It come as a custom kit, and I actually painted about 12 of these. So these pieces, they actually came in as a kit, and you had to assemble them yourself and paint them yourself, obviously. I think the kit retail for somewhere around like $450, and then depending on who you got to paint it, or you painted it yourself, that would depend on, you know, extra price tacked on top of there. Now I've seen these pieces go anywhere from around, you know, $1,300 to $1,800 now, fully painted. But I'm going to kind of go over this one here with you that's in my possession right now. This is my personal copy. And I'll talk about some of the pros and the cons about it, get you my take on it, and clear up some misinterpretation about some that you might have seen on previous videos from different YouTubers. All right. So when this piece came out, this was probably one of the few Blade customs that was actually out there, and it was wonderfully done. It had a good likeness of Wesley Snipes, and I'll show you some close-up pictures here in a little bit. Had a very good likeness. The sculpt itself was really nice. The execution was very, very poor. So a lot of the castings, when they came out, they were very brittle. They were broken. I actually have 2 torsos and legs sitting over here in my floor that were useless when the castings came out. I actually had to get with the commissioner, and it took several months in order to get replacements for parts that were broken. The other issue that plagued this piece was the magnets. Everything is magnetized. The magnets were very, very weak. The pieces were broken off where the magnets actually went in, and it was just, again, it was poorly executed. There was a lot of problems with the resin that was used on this. A lot of people are saying, oh, it was a polystone, or it was a porcelain. No, it was not. It was a poor mixture of resin is what it was. There were some pieces that came in that were actually bleeding. What that means is if you have a piece that's leaching resin, it never fully cures. It never will, and there's nothing you can do to help prevent that except for basically cut that piece out and or throw it away and start over. So there was a lot of pieces that were like that. But the magnets were just very, very poor. They would barely hold anything on together. On mine, I actually replaced the magnets with better ones. So you can actually just, there's no seam lines or anything like that. A lot of the magnets were slipping and coming out and just did not hold very well. Again, that was just the execution of the commissioner when he sent out the copies of it. So the good thing is this thing has a ton of switch outs, and we'll go over that here in a minute. There's a couple of guns. There's a couple of blades with hands with blades on them. There's also a separate hand with a sword on it, which is pretty cool. So as far as the actual sculpt and the likeness, it was spot on. It's supposed to be a quarter scale. It's a slightly smaller quarter scale. It's more or less in between a 1/5 and a 1/4 scale, and that was verified through the commissioner because it was an error in the casting process. The base itself, I'll show you some close-ups on it here in a little bit. The base is hollow, but it's pretty thick. So this has only one portrait, which is the Wesley Snipes version, of course, with a closed mouth, and I'll show you some close-ups here in a little bit. And it does have the glasses that do come off. But the head itself attaches by magnets, or you could put it, you know, if my goal was to actually do another portrait later on, get a sculptor to actually sculpt another piece for it. And then this piece, the torso, is actually separate from the legs. It really didn't have to be, because you're not going to replace it. I mean, you could have made it one piece, but it did do a little better for shipping purposes. So, and then of course the arms, you have different arms to switch out. You had different arms to switch out on both sides, where you could put a gun or you could put the blade on it whatsoever. So that was very good for posability, or for posing. I don't know if posability is a word. So yeah, there was a lot of switch outs for it, but the kit itself took a lot of work to do. There are still some people out there that have kits that pretty much have like leaching resin, I guess you could say, or some wet spots on there. So this was a challenge to get done. Now my personal copy I've actually had to redo this twice already because of the way that the resin was just poor. A couple of the videos that I've seen actually had chips taken out of the base and the ears and other places like that. Well, I can see that happening because of the resin was just very, very poor. There's instances where you do a piece that's older and you kind of look back on it and you go, man, I could have done a better job than that. Because over time, after painting for so long or whatever, you just get that much better. So there's things on here that I would have done different. But all in all, this is a piece that's really sought after by a lot of collectors. And there, like I said, I think there was 51 in the whole batch. To be honest with you, there's not a true 51. I think it's more along the line of like 38, because some of the castings were so poor that they had to be destroyed. And the commissioner refused to have any more made because the molds were given away, or they were just, he didn't want to do it, whichever. But this was a 3D print initially, and of course they went through the molding and casting process to make more. I can tell you right now that I probably painted about 15 to 20 bases, because the bases were just had so many holes from the casting process. They were just very, very poor. You could paint it, and the next thing you know, the paint was I actually had like 2 or 3 where the paint was bubbling off as I was painting it. It was really, really weird. And then I had a couple where a day or two later, the paint had leached through. So again, that was one of the poor executions on the casting process. So aside from the sword, he also had a detachable sword that went into his back right here. You could actually take this in and out. One problem that I still face on this one here was the hole was never deep enough, and I actually had to mold and cast another sword for myself, because the one that I had was actually, it bent. I mean, it was never cured resin, so uncured resin, and it actually bent backwards as I had it in the back here. So one thing I'm going to do when I correct this, I'm going to actually drill a little bit better into the back there, so the sword will actually go all the way down. But you could remove this whenever you had the hand holding the sword in its place, so that way it didn't look kind of funky. You had one in the back, one in the front, so you wouldn't have that issue. But other than that, there was some design questionable things or whatever. But again, we're talking about a piece. It's probably 4, maybe 5 years old. It's not superior to today's designs and today's technology. So I don't get a lot of people not understanding about statues like this, or something that was traditionally sculpted. They want to dog it, and they want to talk about how bad it is. You got to consider the timeline when this thing came out. There were a bunch of reviews that come out for it, and the people who commissioned it loved it. So, but I think everybody can agree that the casting part, the actual parts that we got, were just god awful. I mean, there was a lot of filler, a lot of sanding, a lot of primer, sand, repeat sort of thing, in order just to get it to where you could actually paint it. But it was a chore, and I did like 12 of these. So, but this model, this is probably the best likeness of Wesley Snipes that I've seen as far as Blade. I've seen a couple of comic versions of Blade that were pretty good, but if you want the actual blade itself or whatever with this likeness, this is probably the piece to find if you can find it. So I'm going to go over next. I'm going to kind of go over a little bit more closely on some of the pieces and talk to you about some of the things that I'm going to fix on this, and we'll take it from there. All right, so this is some of the likeness that I was referring to. You can see that the actual scar was actually sculpted into there. It was pretty much on point. The eyes, I did paint the eyes, and I always had trouble with the eyes back then. I'm much better painter now, so I'll definitely redo the eyes on this. The tattoo on the back of the neck was pretty accurate to the movie. Of course, you can see as over time how this thing is sitting there. I mean, there is paint that will flake off. I mean, hell, it even does that with sideshow pieces right now as soon as you get them. But what I did for the paint is I did the skin tone. I actually did a brown and pinkish mix together, and I went over that on the nose, the forehead, the eyes, and everything, the ears, and everything like that to kind of get that texture to come out as far as like how the represents the blood under the skin and everything. And even though it's an African American portrait, you still have to get those details into that. The other thing that I did was on the buckles and the stakes and the sword, I actually used a Molotow chrome, I think I'm pronouncing that right, chrome paint that I used in the airbrush to paint those parts. This was actually a part that was separate from the leg and it glued onto there. And then this up here, the buckles were two separate pieces as well. I actually had to hand sculpt a couple of these pockets here because the pieces were just so bad when they come in that I actually had to hand sculpt those right there. They were just not salvageable at all. There was really no QC in the print process or in the casting process at all. It was just thrown together really, really bad. So the base, I went, there was a lot of holes in the base from bubbles and stuff from it not being casted correctly. So I actually used that to my advantage. I actually plugged some of those up and did a lot of dry brushing on here and a lot of airbrushing as well to get the texture. I did the blood red hieroglyphics on there. Another person that I saw a review on said, made a comment about the dried blood. Well, actually, what that was supposed to be was kind of like a rust effect, but it did turn out pretty nice. You can call it dry blood if you want. The other major issue with this piece was the feet going in to the base. That's not magnetic or anything. When you pull this piece up, which I'll do here in a minute, it's just two big holes in the base, and this thing just sets down in there. It's got two big long pegs, and like I said, it was just poorly executed. Not very good at all. The other parts of the body, it took a while to smooth out. It is a little dusty and a little dirty from sitting up for so long. But I had to do a lot of filling on this. I had to redo the magnets on it as well. Like I said, this is actually the second paint job I've done on this one. And luckily, I don't have any leaching from any uncured resin or anything like that. I do have a couple of scuff marks, probably from where I, scuffed it up by knocking it on something or whatever like that, moving it over the years. But no, but other than that, it's a pretty solid base paint job on there. The glasses are removable, and so I have to redo the glasses. I actually see a little piece right there where the paint has rubbed off, and I need to smooth them out a little bit and gloss them up. But this is one of those pieces that was so delicate and fragile when it came in. It was just you had to be super careful when you got this. So the guns on the hands, they turned out okay, I guess. I mean, as you can see where the magnets are, this was not done by, because it already had the holes pre-drilled into the pegs, but you could see where it's all broken off and everything. Well, that's how the castings came in. That wasn't done by me or anyone else I'm sure of, but you kind of had to have what, I mean, you had what you had. I mean, that was it. So what I will actually do to fix that is I'll actually take some UV resin and pack around it and cure it. That way it kind of evens up a little bit alongside there. And I'll probably take some Avs epoxy and do the same thing. There's a couple of things that I can do now compared to back then. And then the other hand that had the blades on it, I'm definitely going to redo this because it's not smooth on the blade at all. This chrome settled in over time and it just looks like shit. So we're going to fix that, sand it down and redo it, and to make it a lot smoother on there, I'll take some putty or something like that, smooth it out, get it really looking really good, and then I'll rechrome it. So the hand that actually holds the blade with the sword, I redid this one again and it actually turned out really good. So I probably don't need to redo that. I do see some spotting onto the hand there. Looked like maybe some of the chrome rubbed off, or some of the black rubbed off, because actually when I painted this, I painted the whole thing chrome, and then I just went back over black. I didn't mask it off because I hate masking. So this time around, I'll actually probably do it a little different. I'll definitely probably tape everything off and repaint it and fix it up that way. But the magnet in this one, like, you can see how small the magnets are. They're just tiny little magnets. They're not very, very strong at all. So, you know, the magnets were weak, and like a lot of the other reviews said, they just do not hold very well at all. So here is the sword pose. The sword just kind of hangs in his hand right here. Again, this one magnet needs to be redone. It's pretty weak, but it looks really, really neat. Let me see if I can get back a little bit. So yeah, this is the pose, and then this comes out, and actually let's take the other one out as well, the gun, and you can put the blades into the hands if you want, or to the arms, this way, and then you kind of get this where he's holding those. So that's another pose that you can do. And then if you want, take those out and take this arm off, and then you can put this arm in, and then you can have him holding the gun if you want, or you can have him holding the blade, whichever you want to do. And like I said, I fixed the magnets on these arms so I don't have any seam issues or anything like that, and like some people do. And then you can put the other gun, or you can put whatever you want to in there, and then there you have it. Yeah, but you can switch those out and get a really, really killer piece. Get another pose if you want. It's a very good interpretation of Wesley Snipes, and hope you guys enjoyed this piece. All right, everybody, that's it. I just wanted to do a quick video to get a chance to show you some of my previous work. Like it says, it's a blast from the past. Show you some of the rare collectibles that are out there, the rare customs that I've worked on in the past, and get a chance to actually see it in person and my take on it. So if you like this segment, great. Let me know below. If you didn't like it, also let me know. If you like the video, definitely give it a like, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you to my patrons. Don't forget, I do have a Patreon and you can join to talk about things like this, painting, printing, all kinds of stuff. You get directly in touch with me as well as the other guys on the Patreon. A link for that is below in the description. It's just another way that you can help support the channel. So with that being said, everyone, stay safe out there. Have a great day, and we'll see you.